Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Charlton Live, sponsored by PSF Steel Limited. My name is Louis Mendes. Hope you guys are all well on your Sunday morning. On today's show, we will be looking back at a disappointing day up in North Wales yesterday. The Addicts' top two hopes ended as Wrexham beat us by 3-0 to seal their promotion to the Championship. Joining me to look back at that game. First up, top right, Mr. Tom Wallin. How you doing, Tom?
I'm all right. I left before full time. So missed the party, missed the end of the circus.
Yeah, I was there for ages after, because when they all spilled on the pitch, it was a nightmare to get anywhere near Nathan Jones to interview him after. So yeah, it took us a long time. I think I got back at like 2 a.m. as well. It was a long day. You've done well to get out of there. Also joining us, bottom of the screen there, is Benji Clegg. How you doing, Ben?
Good morning, mate. Yeah, I'm good. Thank you very much. Just wondering if we got any marathon runners listening while they're running around London this morning. We'll hopefully cheer them up a little bit.
Yeah.
But good luck to all of them.
Yeah, if there is anyone who's downloaded the podcast halfway through the London Marathon, I admire your dedication. Yeah, good luck if you are anyone Charlton related doing it, or Richard Corley's doing it as well. Hope it all goes really well for you. Hope it goes better than it did for the Addicts yesterday. So we'll hear the goals very shortly. We'll hear them very briefly because I got sick of hearing them back, to be fair. We're going to hear from the Addicts boss, Nathan Jones. We're going to hear from Conor Coventry after yesterday's defeat as well. I want to hear from you guys. Morning to everyone joining us in the chat. Mike Salmon is first one in there. So it's definitely our most disappointing performance from minute one, but overall Wrexham deserve it as they have been consistent this season. Our very own Sam's in there. All hell let loose. Keith, Joseph, Alan, Steve, Mike, Dudley. Let us know your thoughts on yesterday's game, Isaac. Where did it go wrong yesterday? Was the writing on the wall as soon as we heard the team news? Maybe a little bit yesterday. And how if you were manager, how would you pick us up now as well? How would you turn this around going into playoffs? Because it's one defeat. It was a bad one, but it's one defeat after another very good run. And we've still got a playoff campaign to come. So let's not be too down. But yeah, let us know your thoughts. Email studio@charltonlive.co.uk. You can tweet us at Charlton Live. You can add a live comment as well. Just before we listen back to the goals, Tom, it was set up so perfectly yesterday. We got there. We watched the end of the Leyton Orient Wycombe game. Orient obviously got a very good result there. Wycombe again not looking on the very best of form. So it was set up like, right, we needed that to happen. So now we just got to do our bit. But there was always this dwindling concern when we got there that there's a couple missing here and a couple of key players, and it felt very much like the writing was on the wall, and especially when they got those two quick goals, it was game over after 18 minutes, wasn't it?
Yeah, the lineup didn't help. But having said that, as you say, after that 20-minute period, I thought we were slightly the better side without really creating. So I'm not going to stand here like a manager and try and justify the defeat. They took those two goals and obviously started to defend that lead and did what they needed to do to get over the line. So I'm not going to say we deserve to win the game or anything like that. But I went into this game and said on Thursday that when we're at our best, we're the better football inside, and I stand by that. But we just weren't at our best. That was the problem. We obviously had a couple missing, which already starts that off. And then I said on Twitter yesterday, we played the occasion for that first 20 minutes. The atmosphere was good from the home fans. But the goals we conceded were a factor of playing the occasion, the changes in personnel, Lloyd Jones being injured, playing the game, lots and lots of things all contributed to that. And once they got that 2-goal lead, it was going to be very, very difficult to come back from that. And as I say, I thought we grew into the game after that. We had the majority of the ball, it felt like, at least. And certainly in that first half, a lot of the game was being played up the far end, which was in their half. We didn't really create anything, was there? There was the odd shot. I think it was Tenai Watson had a shot that got saved, but that was about it, really. And what's frustrating for me is, again, on Thursday, I said it'll be interesting to see how we cope with the pressure of a big game. Because I felt like Wycombe was a big game, but maybe the atmosphere and the circus, if you like, that didn't exist at Wycombe, and we were able to just treat it as a normal football game. Yesterday, when you come into a hostile atmosphere like that, we just didn't seem to be able to stand up to it. And that's the worrying thing going into the playoffs, because those games are going to feel bigger, and we need to be able to handle that. But that's probably the biggest example of what that sort of atmosphere is going to be like. We've got through that now. Okay, we lost. Focus on the playoffs, as you say. I think we were all flat yesterday, and I was suddenly looking a little bit nervous. But Jones has got to find a way to make sure the players don't feel like that, because we have been the informed side for this back end of the season. They have to remind themselves of that. And on their day, they can beat anybody else. So, like lots of people are saying in the chat, rest a lot of players for Burton. I don't think it's worth trying to play for a certain position because there's just so many permutations in the playoffs. So finish where you finish, irrespective of what happens against Burton, and all focus now has to be on those two semi-final games.
Right, let's have a quick listen back to the goals from Charlton TV, Greg and Tell, along with Brownie.
One into James. James out to Rathbone, who can hit them and does, and scores. Distant shot on the quarter hour. James lifts the ball into the area. Smith's unmarked and scores. And one has become two. Dobson back in the middle at walking pace. Sends Cleworth away again. Cleworth on the right. Ball into the box, and it's a header coming in from Smith. And it's 3-0 and game over.
Absolutely. And it's the first time they've actually tried to keep possession and progress into our half, and you have to say you shouldn't really, as a centre-half, let any striker get across you towards the near. It's a good enough ball towards that corner of the 6-yard box, but Smith wriggles away from Gillespie, and once he makes solid contact in bullets past Mannion, and the game is done and dusted. And Wrexham have done to us what we did to Wycombe last week. And as much as it grates, you've got to give them congratulations. I didn't think they managed that this season, but they're going to be playing championship football next year. And it's been a thoroughly professional performance from them. And Charlton couldn't come, unfortunately, and spoil the party.
There we go. That's the goals. Just the brief ones from the game yesterday from Charlton TV. Ben, I said it felt like the writing was on the wall. Like when we got there, there was word that there was players missing. Obviously, we heard in the build-up that Nathan hinted that a couple might not make it, and that was the case. There was no Luke Berry yesterday. There was no Thierry Small. Obviously, we know there was not going to be any Chuksaniki after his red card wasn't rescinded. There was no Ghassan Hadmeh on the bench if he was going to be the difference maker yesterday. Like there were plenty of people missing, and as soon as you saw that, particularly Small and Berry, two very key players to the way we play, as soon as you saw that, you thought, this is going to be a long afternoon.
You're right, mate. Yeah. I mean, especially as those two players were key on Monday in our game. I mean, obviously Small setting up the fourth goal, Berry with a great strike. Yeah, it was all a bit odd, wasn't it, against Wycombe? Coming off with cramp, apparently, after 28 minutes was a bit like, oh, really? I'm not sure you should have cramp after 28 minutes. So, yeah, I think if you could read between the lines there, he's been obviously carrying a knock. So they didn't want to risk him. Same with Thierry. I get it. We've just not got the strength in depth. You look at the two sides, the players they had to bring off the bench, the players not even in their squad, is just like vast compared to ours. And we're shoving on Mika and Bick and Dan Carnu, like two young lads. Carnu just coming back from injury. We just didn't have if the game wasn't going our way, which obviously it wasn't, we didn't have the players to come on and change it. And obviously putting Tenai Watson in Thierry Small's position. Okay, I thought he did okay yesterday, but he's not a ball carrier like Thierry is. He doesn't frighten defenders by taking the ball at them and offer the same role that Thierry does. We just don't have like for like in the roles. Like Roy Anderson, yes, he's a good runner, good athleticism about him, gets in their faces, but can he strike a ball like Luke Berry? Can he get in and around it? Can he be getting in the box at the right time, helping Matty Godden out? No, he can't, but that's just not his role. So, yeah, unfortunately, we have been hit by injuries at a bad time. And obviously, conceding 2 in the first 20 minutes didn't help either, did it? But, yeah, I think it's okay to feel deflated because it was a big game for us. And we haven't had a big game like that for years in this league. One that we can really get excited about. And we can see the finish line in our sights, and we could have been oh so close. But ultimately, if we look at it now in a cold light of day, we go, yeah, we can understand why we didn't turn up yesterday. We're missing key players. We're missing game changers, as Nathan Jones says it. But as well, we were shell-shocked in that first 20 minutes, as Tom said. The atmosphere was different to the Wickham game. They got a big, loud crowd behind them, and it affected us, and players made uncharacteristic mistakes.
Yeah, the atmosphere was huge yesterday from both sets of fans. But I mean, the build up when you got to the ground. Obviously, like I say, the Leyton Orient Wickham result had come in. The fans were streaming into the ground with a level of expectancy. There is, I know the word circus got blown about yesterday, but it was the main Sky game. Obviously, Ryan Reynolds was there on the pitch, all that sort of stuff. There was a lot of distraction around, but I don't even think that part of it played a massive part. I think it was more the fact it was an intense atmosphere as well, and we were on the back foot from the off because we had these players missing, and I just don't think we dealt with that. I mean, they're right on top of you there. The crowd was brilliant. You got to say fair play to Wrexham. I've not been to the racecourse before, and that was a special place to watch a game of football. You feel like that crowd was really up for it and really noisy and really hostile. And we with that start we had, Tom, we just didn't look like we could handle it. And I mean, the 2 goals we conceded were very disappointing, sloppy goals, particularly the first one. Just a very, very simple strike for Rathbone, the way they worked it to him on the edge of the box. He had so much space. I think Mannion may be slightly unsighted, but seemed to see it a bit late. The manner of that goal in particular will disappoint Nathan.
Both of them. And as you say, I think it has to be down to our ability to handle that atmosphere and just being sloppy, because surely Nathan Jones has told them that. Surely they know what that's going to be like. So first instruction is just keep it tight for at least 20 minutes, if not half an hour. If you go into that, even at half-time 1-0 down or at least level, then maybe you start to impose yourselves in the second half if you get a chance. But to throw 2 cheap goals away against a side that have that much talent in their squad, it goes back to what Nathan said after the game about not being able to do the basics. I mean, the guy who was played through for the corner looked miles offside to me, but having seen the replay, maybe Ramsey's playing him on, and if that's the case, that's poor. And then from the corner, just so slow. Like, all our players on the edge of the 6-yard box, no one pushes out to him. And you're right, I don't think there's anything Mannion could do at that point. He's completely unsighted. And then the second one, again, just a clip ball over the top. That's why I go back to the point. Lloyd Jones must have just not been able to move, or the communication between him and Gillespie wasn't there, because we don't usually see that. And again, what can Mannion do when Sam Smith's firing at him from 6 yards out? So just two goals that we don't normally concede. It's just really, really poor. And yeah, as you say, once you're 2-0 down to a team that have that sort of backing at home, know that if they win, they're going up to the Championship. I think at that point, the right, you were talking about the right being on the wall. I think from that point, it certainly was spray painted on, yeah, and it wasn't coming off. And as I say, I thought after that maybe we were slightly the better team. As I say, I'm not going to say we were brilliant. We didn't create enough by any stretch, but at that point the job was done from them, and so it's not a compliment to Charlton at all, because we didn't create any chances. We just had a bit more of the ball, but I think they were just controlling the game at that point, a little bit like Birmingham when we went 1-0 down there. And at that point the lack of quality told. And as Benji was saying, I was saying to Amy on the drive home, I didn't even know Mbik's first name, and there being people like Stephen Fletcher off the bench who's been Premier League player. Like, the difference in investment is just vast. And credit to Jones for what he's done to get us to that point, to be fair, with that squad. But it does show that lack of depth. And as lots of people are saying in the chat, with me saying we're a good football inside and, the informed team, I'm well aware Stockport are a good side, Leyton Orient are picking up. I'm not saying the playoffs are going to be a walkover by any stretch. I'm just trying to say that this team on their day can beat any team in this league, and they have to channel that confidence, because if they don't, we're going to get walked over by a team, and unnecessarily so, because we have got the quality in that starting 11 if injuries come back to beat anybody. But it's not a foregone conclusion by any stretch, and that's why I was so desperate to get second. I don't want to have to go through the playoffs again, because I'm not convinced we'll get there, but that's where we are now, and Jones has to motivate that side to get through those playoffs now.
Yeah, I mean, Tom mentioned the second goal there, Ben. The way Smith was free. I mean, you watch it back. It basically, Jones steps out to play him offside, but then there's other people on the edge of the box who haven't stepped out. I think Ramsey, if I remember rightly. I just watched it back again this morning. So that's how they got into that space. And again, I mean, like, when Lloyd Jones isn't fit, and by a word, he did not look fit yesterday. Poor Lloyd. He didn't look fit when I spoke to him on Easter Monday. I know I asked him about it. He said he was fine, but he was walking a bit gingerly, to put it kindly. And you know, I mean, he's been playing through painkillers, all that sort of stuff. And you know, if Lloyd's not at the very top of his game, then it's going to cause a little bit of confusion and that sort of stuff at the back. And again, that was a poor goal, a lack of communication, whatever it was. But you know, cracking finish by Smith. You got to say he was a very very good game for them. But that sort of stuff hasn't been us this season. But now the concern is, as we're getting towards the business end, we are carrying a few knocks and a few fitness problems, and we're going to go into this end of the season with, I mean, if it's a depleted squad going into the playoffs, then that will make me very nervous.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Lloyd's been such a leader for us this season. I know he obviously was out for a little while with an injury. Then we left him out for a little while to kind of regain some fitness, regain some sharpness. And yeah, yesterday conceding those 2 goals like we did, as Tom said, I mean, they were just sloppy goals to concede. But as you just said as well, they took both goals really well. But that second one, I think, will annoy Nathan the most. Just the communication between Macca and Jones to look at each other as Smith is free on goal. But, I mean, what a finish by him to take it on the volley like that. Mannion had no chance. Great ball over the top as well, you could say. But, frustrating because you think that's the kind of stuff we've been doing. We've been defending really well. And stopping teams from getting chances like that. And that all starts from the midfield as well. I think James, who chipped the ball over, probably had too much time to make the pass. And as you said, Ramsey was playing him on side as well. The communication there was all off, and maybe the occasion gets to him there. But yeah, it will be a worry if these players aren't fit going into the games. That's what annoyed me yesterday. I think it was just, they are a very well organised setup side. I think they're very similar to us. I don't think they do any roles amazing, apart from just being well drilled, well organised, as Nathan Jones always wants us to be. I don't think they played the ball round us and were amazing, but then they just kept us at arm's length after 2-0. And as we said, because we didn't have the players to turn that game around, we were then staring at the barrel of let's keep a bit of dignity here and not open ourselves up too much and get absolutely thrashed. But yeah, they took control of the game and scored two well taken goals, didn't they? And that was it, heads down there from there for us. And as I said, uncharacteristic mistakes. You don't see Macca and Lloydie doing that. Yes, they're carrying knocks, communication, and it's been a long season. So hopefully now after that, we can kind of clear those errors out of our game. But yeah, those were disappointing. I'm sure that second one would annoy Jones the most.
Yeah, Dean said, I really thought we would give it a go yesterday. Didn't expect us to fold like we did. Paul said, felt the same way at St Andrews, men against boys, onwards and hopefully upwards, because that was the bit that stood out for me. I mean, after the second goal, I think we did settle a little bit. We got on the ball a little bit more. We had a couple of moments in with that Godden one that was blocked. Obviously, the Ramsey ball into Watson was really good actually, and it was a good save by Conquer. And I see a lot of people saying, "Oh, Small would have scored that," but to be honest, I'm not convinced he would have, because obviously that's finishing's not been the part of his game. But I think overall the fact that Small wasn't there to provide, a double-barreled threat down both sides with TC and Small on one side and give Wrexham a little bit more to think about. That was a big miss for us yesterday, and I thought TC was really quiet, really struggled to get into it, and for all the way we settled into it a bit and we made subs in the second half to try and rescue it, it just never felt like we were getting back into it, Tom.
You're spot on, and I think I used the word settled into it yesterday rather than maybe with a better side, and I think that's fair. As I say, we didn't create enough to win the game, of course. I was really disappointed in Tyrese. Look, we know what he's capable of. He's still a young player. He's going to have peaks and troughs, but we really need him to peak for the next, hopefully, 4 games or final 4 games of the season, because he's a bit disappointing. I thought he was better against Wycombe, but obviously it was a 4-0 win. I didn't think he was great against Northampton at home either. So he's in a little bit of a dip at the moment, but he's being asked to play a lot of football. I've called him tired, I think, since Birmingham, so maybe he finally is. I don't know. But and yesterday he had all the pressure on him to create, because Luke Berry wasn't there and Thierry Small wasn't there. And so really you're just looking at him as being the guy to to do anything in the attacking third, as you say, with Tenai on the other side being slightly more defensive and maybe not, although he did get forward a couple of times, maybe not as creative as a Thierry Small in the final third. So pressure on him. But yeah, not one of his better games. As we say, in the second half, I thought Mbik actually held the ball up pretty well. I thought Kanu started to get in some good positions. But again, what are we talking about? We're talking about the edge of the box, really. It's not like they were getting into the box and creating chances, but at least the ball was sticking to them a little bit better. I thought when Gilbert came on, I don't know, it's not really fair to compare him like for Karoy. And I still feel like Karoy's played out of position when he takes the place of Berry, because he had a poor game yesterday, I thought, and I understand what he's in there for, supposedly his physicality and his getting around the pitch, but either he just didn't do it well enough yesterday, or he's just not in the right position when he's sort of replacing Berry. But I understand if you go with Gilbert from the start against Wrexham away from home, you're just inviting a lot of pressure, because Gilbert isn't the sort of guy that tracks back. So don't know whether you switch it around and almost play Karoy alongside and Coventry and sort of have two defensive. I don't know. But anyway, that didn't really work. And that goes back to that strength in depth, same as the subs that came on, who, as I say, did their bit. But you're relying on a guy who's played, 1.5 games of football for us, and Kanu, who's been out for a long time. Like, they're just not going to change the game. And as I say, when you look at the players they were able to bring on, it's just a different class. And I think you said on Thursday's show, Birmingham should never have been this league in the first place. And you're right. You look at that Wrexham squad, and I know, as Benji was saying, they're not the best footballing side in the world. We were in the turf before the game talking to a lot of their fans, and they said, you're a better side than us, I think, on paper. We don't play very exciting football, but we just know how to get over the line. And that Hollywood story, that circus, that does play a part, doesn't it? Because it makes players believe, and it makes them get over the line. So, we just never really got anywhere near them. And whoever it was that said it felt a bit like St Andrews is right. I think we have more chance. I felt like we could actually get something from this, whereas Birmingham, actually, when it kicked off, it felt like we never could. But those goals then soon killed that as well. Just very frustrating. But as I say, it's just all about the playoffs now. We just have to be forward focused at this point. Learn from yesterday. Don't just ignore it. Learn from it, but then write it off as a bad day and go again. And as I say, I'd be resting players against Burton, because I just don't think you want to be taking a risk whether Lloyd Jones is even fit enough to play. But I just think let's be careful with them, and the players that haven't had a lot of minutes, let's give them some more, because we might need them in the playoffs.
Yeah, Chris says that Anderson isn't a number 10. He's got no technical ability. Andrew says that TC didn't show as in other big games. He still needs to believe in himself a bit. Keith says TC been doubled up on for weeks now. We have no other outlet, and that's the real problem. Ed said very flat overall, which suggests the pressure was too much for them, if I'm honest. I mean, it felt like everything was against us before we started yesterday, Ben, but we still have to try and find a way to battle through that. And actually, I quite agree with what was being said about Wickham. Wickham was a high pressure game in terms of we had to win. A team, obviously sitting at the time in second. It was a difficult game on paper, but it's like playing at a Village Fate when you go to Wickham compared to when you go to Wrexham. Like, it's just completely different scenario in terms of the crowd and the atmosphere and the intensity and the hostility. You don't get that at Wickham, and you get that at Wrexham. So are you concerned by how that went yesterday? Because it did feel like it got to us a little bit. Also, I mean, you have to couple it with the fact that we're missing key players. So that will, even though no one will admit it, that will have players thinking, cool, we ain't got some of the big boys here. But that coupled with the atmosphere just didn't seem to go well for us yesterday. So we definitely have to learn from that, Ben. We definitely have to, the experienced players will have to try and help drag everyone through that sort of situation when we go into the playoffs, because, we'll talk about who it will be. At the moment, it's likely to be Wickham, but it could change, and I think probably that's the ideal one. But if it's Stockport away over 2 legs, I mean, I could see Stockport getting a little bit rowdy if we're up there on a Thursday night or a Saturday night. That could be a difficult game.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think because it was such a big game, a lot of people kind of changed their mindset, didn't they, during the afternoon yesterday? Because of Wickham losing, it suddenly turned into Wrexham could get promoted. Not, hang on, we needed Wrexham to lose as well, so then we can leapfrog them and be in a great position for next week. So I think it more swayed towards them, and because of the ownership there and the run they've been on to do 3 back-to-back promotions, the story was all on them. You're right. And I think maybe we just didn't have that spark in our team. We didn't look around at players that we thought could help carry us. Just like as you were saying there with TC, like if TC's looking up, 2 players on him to kind of spray the ball to someone else to get us a goal. You're looking at Anderson on the edge of the box, Tenai Watson, Matty Godden, of course, but he was man-marked the whole game. There just really wasn't that spark there, something you can look to around your teammates and rely that they've got a moment to make it happen for us. But look, take away from the fact that we were missing players and the atmosphere got to them, it definitely did. I mean, as I said, those first 2 goals were just, you're talking about players that have played so well in those positions this season. I mean, sending 2 players out for a short corner when they got a guy on the edge of the box that's just unmarked. We haven't done that this season. We've not done that. We've been well on top of defending set pieces, and if they have scored, then it's been a good cross and a good header. So yeah, I think it did get to them yesterday. I think they probably did get caught in the motion of the whole Wrexham circus, if you like. What Nathan said, that those comments in the week probably didn't help. I mean, how many they were just singing that all game, weren't they? Football in a circus. Do and all of that obviously didn't help us as well. I think we were on the back foot from minute 1. The atmosphere was up. They were our players at Nathan Jones. They didn't like those comments. They played on them, and we didn't react well enough. If you think of like players that are experienced in that team that could have like got on the ball and dragged us through it, we didn't see that from those players yesterday. But their players, the experience they've got, and the quality they've got in their team, it just shown through. So at the end of the day, you just go, look, they played to the atmosphere. They were at home. They know if they won, they would be kings of the town and loving it all night on the drinks, whatever, celebrations. Whereas we knew if we got a result, which was against the odds, then we play again next week. So yeah, it was in their favour. They did a job on us. Their quality shone through, and we need to use those experiences from yesterday to, as you said, take this now into the playoffs. If we do have to go Stockport or Wickham away in that second leg, how do we react to a big game mentality?
Again, like if the second leg will be away, I'd feel a lot more comfortable going to Wickham than I would Stockport. But yeah, I think we'll talk more about that after we hear from Nathan. Chris says he thought Dobbo bossed the middle of the park yesterday. He thought Coventry was anonymous. Jake said if Watson takes his chance, maybe the game changes, but he said that's his only thought. But we'll never know, will we? Right, let's have a listen to what Nathan Jones had to say. It was a nightmare trying to get hold of him yesterday, so they all ran on the pitch. I had to try and weave my way through, and ended up down in the tunnel with Nathan for a very brief chat. Obviously, no one was particularly happy after yesterday's game, but Nathan, his comments here. This is what he had to say on the defeat up at Wrexham.
Wasn't to be today. What did you make of the game?
We were second best all game. They were excellent today. We didn't do the basics well. Look, we've had a really tough week. This is an excuse for a really tough week. We lost Berry, we lost Thierry, we lost Gassan, we lost Ashley Maynard-Brewer, we lost Lloyd. Lloyd hasn't trained all week. He's been on more painkillers than I can imagine, and he wasn't right today. And then coupled with that seemed to rock us. We had too many players that got probably outfought, outworked, and they were thoroughly deserved they win. But look, we can't be too negative. We have to concentrate now on the playoffs. It was a long shot for us to get automatic because of basically the November we had, where we had to really come from behind. We were on a fantastic run, but today, we were second best. And look, let's not forget, in the window, we streamlined the squad. Got 7 out, took 2 loans. They've spent in the region of £5 million and brought in some real quality. And probably that was the difference today. Smith was probably the difference in the 2 teams because there wasn't any many big chances, but he was probably the difference.
Yeah, after that fast start for them, it took a while, but you did settle into the game and you look more like yourselves.
Well, there's probably 4 chances in the game first half. They had 2, we had 2, and they took theirs and stuff. But look, we didn't deserve anything from the game today. They were better than us, and it was probably just a little bit too much, from today. But we've lost, we lost a lot of big players today, and Lloydie was nowhere near him. So to have the disruption that we've had this week, and to put, and to come here, and they gave me everything right till the end. They still keep working, so that's the positive. But now we've got to dust ourselves down. We've got to finish the season and then go into a playoff campaign.
Can you tell us about those players who are missing Berry to start with?
Yeah, look, they just. it was a brutal game last week, physicality. I forgot actually to mention Chucks, who didn't get his red card overturned, bafflingly enough. So look, we've lost 5 or 6 players today, and we can't come into a game like this with missing 5 or 6 players, missing physicality, missing cleverness, missing quality, and then coupled with Lloyd was nowhere near his levels because of the injury he had. So look, it's just a tough one to take.
And with Thierry as well, what was his knock today?
His was just the hamstring, tight hamstring. Felt it last week, so we brought him off. Beza felt his thigh, so yeah, we weren't, and so we couldn't risk him. And to come into a game, they were in full strength with the players they got, the strength they got. We didn't have that today.
You mentioned how important it will be now to obviously end the season strongly next week. I mean, a lot of fans have spoken about wanting to get the second leg at home. Is that something you see as important?
Well, look, maybe you don't know. I've had playoff campaigns where I've won, where I've lost, and second leg being at home and so on. So look, what we have to do is make sure we finish strongly. We make sure we dust everyone down now, because we've got to get a full squad back. Because we're a tight, lean squad, and we need all our good players back. That's the most important thing, firstly, and then we've got to go into a game next week, try and win the game, and then continue the momentum. Because we haven't lost many games in the last 25, 26 games, but today was just probably one too many.
PSF Steel Limited is a trade supplier of steel fabrication and erection services to the new build, construction and refurbishment market in southern England. With their unrivaled depth of experience, they excel at providing their customers with high quality and cost-effective steel fabrication solutions. Their customers include national and regional house builders, such as Barratt Homes, Bellway Homes, the Vistry Group and Taylor Wimpey. They pride themselves on their service-based ethos and commitment to customer service excellence, which includes full technical backup and on-site services and support. If you would like more information, go to www.psfsteel.co.uk. That's www.psfsteel.co.uk.
Hello fellow addicts, I'm so excited to tell you all about our micropub, the River Ale House. The River Ale House is based in East Greenwich. It has 6 Pub of the Year awards, an ever-changing selection of amazing beer. It's owned by Charlton fans, walkable to the ground in just 20 minutes with buses that go direct to the Valley too. If your matchday routine includes a drink with your friends, you must join your fellow addicts in the River. See you soon.
Right, welcome back to Charlton Live on your Sunday morning. We just heard there from the Addicts boss after yesterday's 3-0 defeat up at Wrexham. That ends our top 2 hopes, confirms that we will definitely be in the playoffs, as we know. What should we talk about first? You spoke about a few things there. It was quite a short interview, really, but actually covered a lot of ground. He mentioned the thing that stood out for me, that because it was mentioned, Tom, was the fact that he spoke about what they did in January and what we did in January. So it hasn't really become a massive talking point, because we've absolutely smashed it in the second half of the season. So no one's sitting there going, "Oh yeah, but we only actually signed 2 players in January. We got rid of 7, I think it was," he said. And we brought in a couple of loanees who actually between them haven't made a massive difference. They fitted in here and there. Obviously, McIntyre's had good games and bad games, and Gilbert the same. Whereas obviously he said they spent £5 million. Obviously mentioned about Sam Smith and the difference he made. Now that we're here, and now that we're looking at a bit of an injury crisis, it's going to have to be managed between now and the end of the season to see if we can get these players back in for the playoffs. So are we sitting here going like, should we have done a little less streamlining, or should we have gone for it a bit more in January? We never were going to, because we're not being the club that's spending loads of money, but should we have been?
I think there's a few points there, really. I think obviously hindsight is a wonderful thing, and it's very easy to say it. I think first of all, the streamlining still had to happen. I don't think we're looking at some of the players that went out and thinking, well, they could have changed the game yesterday, because they weren't doing it anyway. So I think the players that we got rid of, on the whole, absolutely were the right players to get rid of, and we needed to do that. So I think that's point one. I think Gilbert in particular is unlucky not to have had more game time, because I think he's been impressive with what he's done. McIntyre a little bit less so, although he had a couple of good performances early on, but then obviously recently in the handball, etc., and he's looked a little bit sloppy. And I think the other thing, and I'm not going to defend the ownership too much here, but I think the other thing you're looking at is where we were in January. Did we realistically ever think we were going to get here? Probably not. I think if we'd have been in the top 6 at that point, I don't know, but maybe we would have seen a little bit more at that point as well. So yes, I would have liked a few more players in, of course, but and I think we were saying that at the time. Again, this isn't a hindsight point. If you go back and listen to our shows, we were saying we wanted an extra attacking winger, somebody to be able to replace TC when needed. I think we were talking about another centre back. Obviously, McIntyre came in, but I don't know. And I'm pretty sure we were talking about another central midfielder because we didn't want to rely on Corroy. So I think the players where we've looked out of depth probably are the players, the same positions we were talking about in January anyway. So I don't think that's hindsight either. So I think, yes, we wanted more players. I understand. I don't agree, but I understand why the ownership maybe didn't go all in, because if we hadn't had this back end of the season run and we'd still been nowhere near it, that would have seemed like a waste of money, albeit if you'd signed permanence, of course, you're then building for the following campaign. So it's a difficult one, really. But yeah, it is what it is. We've been very lucky to have a fit squad for as long as we have. But at the same time, that first 11 that go out there are a good side. So you're not going to sign players who are good quality players who are then happy to just sit on the bench, or, like Gassan, for example, nowhere near the side. Now, not been good enough in the early part of the season. I'm not saying he deserves a place in that side, but he would have signed here thinking he was going to get regular football, and he's not. So how do you convince a Sam Smith or a Fletcher or Rodriguez, or even not even somebody to that level? How do you convince someone to come here if they're not even going to get near? So it's a tricky one. It's a tricky balance to get. Obviously, we haven't got it quite right in that we haven't got enough game changers off the bench when there's a couple of injuries. But yeah, it would have been very little difference, I think, and certainly keeping the players that we got rid of wouldn't have made any difference for me, because I just don't think they would have impacted a game like yesterday either.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair point. Yeah, Redmond says having a small squad means you're able to get your message across to the players because it's a tight group, and Nathan did speak about wanting to streamline, but then he brought it up again sort of yesterday, which was interesting. And yeah, Andrew says we spend every day of the season we're 12 million in debt every season, wherever it is that number. I think it was more than that last season, wasn't it? Those numbers that came out. Yeah, Chris says the problem isn't numbers, it's quality in the depth. All the players we lost who would have actually made a difference: Mitchell, Taylor, Eden, not really. Yeah, none of them really. Obviously Zach Mitchell's doing good work out up north of the border by the sounds of it, and hopefully one for the future. Yeah, Isaac says I think it goes either way. If we had no injuries, we'd sit here and say great idea, but then when there's lots of big players out, it's easy to point to. Yeah, Percy says when Small or Tyrese are injured, we have less outlet, and Anderson has to be thrown in because we don't have any backup on the wings. It's mind-boggling how we didn't get someone in January, and that was, as Tom mentioned, that was one of the positions we said we need more pace and width in the side, because when we've been at our best this season is when we've had TC on one side effectively and Thierry Small on the other. And like I say, as soon as we lost Thierry yesterday, it felt like this is like we lose a lot of threat there, because we become a little bit predictable in that the only player we're going to try and give it to try and drive us up the pitch is TC, and if he's not having a good day or if he's getting marked out of it, Ben, then that's what happens yesterday.
That is the biggest point that highlights what went wrong yesterday, is when either of them are injured, because we haven't got a like-for-like replacement. As Tom just said, that was one area we really should have strengthened in January. Just got another player on loan that can carry the burden, really, because, yeah, look, TC coming in for a lot of blame on social media and that. I mean, get it, yeah, but it's frustrating for him when it just all comes down one side. And we're not going to give the ball to Tenai Watson to take us up the pitch, and that's not his role. So then he comes in and people go, oh, he's not good enough, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, that wasn't his position either. So I think we were close to bringing someone in. I think it fell through last minute, didn't it? But that was our fault for probably leaving it last minute. But that is the big thing for me. When one of them are missing, because there's such key roles in the side, we're not a team that plays it around the pitch and plays lovely football. We're a team that gets the ball forward quick, either by getting it out to our wingers like Thierry, like TC, that take us up the pitch by running at defenders, getting throw-ons, long throws come in the box from that, cutting inside, getting shots off as Thierry's done lately, and TC. Defenders are scared for that. They're scared at pace. They're scared at trickery, running at them. And that's how we've done so well this season, like through the second half. We go back to that Northampton game, and pushed Thierry into a right wing role, that is what changed our season around. We suddenly, it clicked, and we were like, oh, well, we've stumbled across it, but it's working. But what we didn't think is, okay, we stumbled across this. Let's just make sure we got the numbers around. So if someone does get injured or suspended, then we can keep that going. And we saw in the in the Lincoln game when TC wasn't fit, we then tried to shoehorn Anson there. Then he gets abused from fans because he said, oh, he's not very good. And okay, he might not be up to this level, but you've got to judge players on their roles. And we're not giving that fair crack of the whip when you don't put players in the right roles. And that's not really down to injuries. You've got to expect either Small or TC are going to have the odd injury here and there. It's not a long-term one like Miles has been out. This is just filling up one role as an extra winger in the side. So that is one we should kick ourselves about, because I think that is a massive part of our game and has been since that Northampton away game. And when we don't have it, we then look to that and then blame others. Whereas actually, if we had men in place just to come in and fill that role, then it would help. Whereas having a Gilbert, I don't think that was something we badly needed. It was more of a winger or a 10 or not a 10, sorry, a TC role where he's up front and on the wing. That's something we badly miss when it's not there.
Yeah, funnily enough, I think in January, I do remember us all saying we need backup for Berry, but since Gilbert's come in, I think Berry's like flown in the second half of the season. Again, clearly we missed him yesterday. A couple of people mentioning we tried to get that lad from Sunderland, didn't we? So I couldn't remember his name. Chris said it's Bennett. I forget. But he would have been a similar profile maybe, but yeah, wasn't to be. Shiny Phil says, not sure we can just blame the small squad when yesterday we could have adapted our tactics and played more defensively. We had Mitchell, and then we had McIntyre on the bench after all. He mentioned November, 1 win in 9, famously, around that time. Tom, that's a bit of the season that, for want of a better phrase, has killed us. If we're talking about top 2, I mean, I would have bitten your arm off and gone eating it all the way up to the shoulder to have got playoffs at that stage. So, to say it killed our season is one thing because we've got playoffs, but it killed our chances of top 2. It was just that stage of the season where we were learning what this side was about, and it took maybe it took longer than we wanted it to, but it had to happen, and it took a while, and it was a difficult stage, but we have come through it. But that's the reason we're not in the top 2. It's not because we lost at Wrexham yesterday. It's not because we've lost 3 games in 4 games in 27, something like that now. Like it's that part of the season that killed our chances of top 2, unfortunately.
Yeah, that week or 10 days with the Mansfield draw, the Lincoln draw, and the Crawley defeat in particular. But yeah, some sloppy defeats before that as well. The Bristol Rovers away. I mean, yeah, you could reel them off. But at the same time, look, other teams are going to have had downturn in form as well. And realistically, like, the league is a pretty good judge of a system, isn't it? You play 46 games against all the other teams and you finish where you finish. We are going to finish where we should have. It's as simple as that. Other teams above us will have lost sloppy games. Birmingham will look at the game away to us at the Valley and been like, oh, we chucked away 3 points there. Now, for them, it didn't matter because they won all their other games. So, every team could say it. I go back to a point I made a few weeks ago on the pod that I think if Jones had this squad in January of last season and he'd had the back end of that season into this campaign to gel them a little bit better, I think we might maybe have got a little bit further forward. But of course, I'm guessing there. And look, we don't want to think about what happens if we don't go up in the playoffs. But if we were to manage to keep hold of this squad, then we've got that building into next year. Of course, if that happens, and we'll have this discussion if we have to, and as I say, hopefully we don't, the worry is that we're going to lose players like Small, like TC, etc., and then you're having to rebuild again. So going back to January, again, the point is, should we have brought more players in with a view to building for next year? Perhaps, but I think at that stage we didn't know what league we were going to be in, albeit at that stage we were pretty sure it would be League One, and obviously now there's a chance of it not being the case. So, yeah, as you say, we threw it away in the early part of the season, but results like that happen. We're still, 5th in the league, so we've had a very, very good season overall. It's just come in a weird way in that the first half was so poor and the second half has been so positive. But as I say, over the 46 games, it all balances out. Everyone's playing the same amount of games, and that's where we are. So Yeah, it's really frustrating. You look at Wickham and the form they're on now, but they're still on the same amount of points as us, maybe more points than us. So we can say Wickham are terrible, but they've got more points than us over the 46 game or 45 games to this point. So yeah, it's a really, really difficult one. You look at things like momentum at that point, and that's why I go back to the fact that overall we're in quite a good run of form. But yeah, it's I don't think there's any one particular game, but that 10 days where those 3 results, certainly we would have expected to get more points. You're going to look back at that with some regret, of course. But it's more than just that. It's the whole season. And clearly, as the maths and the graph and the table and everything say, we just haven't been quite good enough for that second spot.
Yeah. Dean says that Stockport game at home was frustrating. I thought we were the better team on the day and should have got 3 points. Yeah, I mean, there'll be plenty of games like that where we can nitpick the little moments, like we shouldn't have conceded late at Barnsley, but I'm sure other teams will have that as well. But yeah, that Stockport one was just so frustrating, wasn't it? Norman says another reset after a defeat will hopefully get us to Wembley. Then who knows? So after the last 3 defeats now, so I remember after the last 2 defeats before the last couple, before Posh, I think it was, we followed each of them up with a 6-game undefeated run, of which we won 5. And then after the Posh game, I said, well, last 2 defeats, you've gone 6 unbeaten, winning 5. And Nathan said, I hope we can do that again. And that's exactly what we did. So before yesterday, it was 5 wins out of 6 with a draw in there against Lincoln. So if we do that again, we'll get promoted, assuming the draw isn't at Wembley and then it goes to penalties. But yeah, we just need to reset after that. One thing we should mention, Ben, I mean, you did say it earlier, but obviously it was the talk of the town before the game, and everyone in the media really picked up on it. I was being asked about it quite a bit yesterday and playing along with the jokes as well, because it was quite fun. The circus comments, the Wrexham fans in front of me, I put a photo on Twitter. One of them obviously went down the fancy dress shop and bought loads of clown wigs and hats for their mates. So there was like an entire block of people in front of me dressed up as clowns, which I guess I took the photo before the game thinking, this is going to really backfire on them if we win and I can put these photos up and take the mick. But obviously it didn't turn out that way. But did that play a part? I mean, when I got to Wrexham yesterday, I didn't get the impression that if Nathan hadn't called them a circus, they wouldn't have been that bothered about going up. Like, realistically, did that play a part, or did they just use that as a way to try and wind up Nathan Jones after we were 2-0 down?
Yes, I think the latter. I think they're used to it, aren't they? I mean, they're a club that, look, as fans, they didn't ask to be bought by these guys and then have all the attention. They just wanted to get out of the National League. They've been in there so long and go on a good run. Never in their wildest dreams did they think this would happen. So, yeah, look, fair play to their owners. They haven't spent massively and had some huge Premier League stars and bought their way to the league every season. I think they've got in a good manager, a well-drilled side. They've got old Premier League stars in there and stuff like that. But, I mean, the likes of Rathbone, Dobson that are playing there at the moment, they've got good EFL players that are helping them go forward. I think with those comments, we know Nathan's impulsive and says stuff in the heat of the moment to you and maybe sometimes regrets it because he talks so quickly. It's like things come out and he might regret it, but just carries on with it. We know he's like that. When Wrexham hear that, they probably think, oh, here we go, another comment. Oh, well, let's have a laugh at this one. Because they're used to it, aren't they? They go down there every week and have teams probably playing them as their cup final. People watch the documentary and all of that and think, yeah, let's upset them. So them as a club now, they're used to teams coming down and trying to have that kind of edge on them. But yeah, when they went 2-0 up yesterday, it was kind of, oh yeah, here we go. They're singing those songs to Nathan now. Obviously he went against that and said, oh no, I respect them as a club. But yeah, look, they're plaudits to them. They played well. The atmosphere was good. They've gone up again and they played the occasion better. That's all really. With those comments, yeah, they had a laugh of them, which I'm sure we would have done if the shoe was on the other foot. But that's what I don't think that affected the game as such. And then, yeah, as Tom said, we just now have to focus, have this reset, not be too disappointed because it's been an incredible second half of the season. As Nathan said in his interview, to be where we are, to have that shot a second, probably wasn't there, was it really? It was an incredible run to get there, to have a shot. And now let's refocus and think, right, what have we done so well in the second half of the season to get where we are, and focus on that now and try and get these players as fit as possible, ready for this playoff campaign.
Yeah, and that's what McSquared says in this email. It says Wrexham pretty much did to us what we did to Wickham on Monday. So even if we'd won, it still wouldn't have been in our hands. Just highlighting that. He says the match perfectly highlighted though our lack of squad depth, which we've all been aware of. If any of our top players are out, such as Jones or Ticey or Miles or Berry or Small or even Chucks, it says we're missing. We don't have anyone to replace them. Only hard-working players who can fill a gap. So he says our first choice 11. It's definitely a match for any other of the playoff sides, including against Reading or it's just we've got to hope that we've got as many of them fit and available for the playoffs. Right, let's have a listen to one more interview. Caught up again in the tunnel with Conor Coventry after yesterday's game. This is what he had to say after the defeat up at Wrexham.
Conor, it wasn't to be today. How did you see the game?
Yeah, tough game. Obviously, we know it's a tough place to come. Obviously, a good side. You don't come second by not being a good side. I felt obviously we probably started a bit slow and gave ourselves a lot to do, which is the disappointing thing, really. So yeah, we're all hurting in there, and yeah.
That fast start by them seemed to almost kill off our chances, because after that there wasn't a great deal in the game.
No, I didn't feel like there was a great deal in the game. I think even we did have a few chances and maybe could have created a couple more clear-cut ones, but yeah, I didn't think there was loads in the game. Yeah, I think it's just their start really. They started well and we obviously let two in, and it's a real mountain to climb after that.
Nathan talks about how difficult the build-up was to this game, with obviously a number of players missing as well. Did that sort of go against you today?
Yeah, of course it's tough, but we've got a great squad here, and we believe in everyone in the squad. So of course we were gutted to lose the lads, and of course, but yeah, I wouldn't say it's an excuse, because we've got a great squad, and we all believe in each other and the strength of the group.
So it's been an amazing run just to have got anywhere near second, and I guess you have to try and put this behind you quickly and focus on finishing strongly now.
Yeah, of course. I mean, when you think about where we were a certain part of the season, to even be in this position is incredible, but it doesn't make it hurt any less in a way. But look, we know we've got to dust ourselves down now, and we've got a great chance, to still go up in the playoffs. And again, like I said, we believe in the group and believe in what we can do. So yeah, we just have to take the positive of that, really.
How important would it be to end strongly against Burton and regain some of that momentum?
Yeah, definitely, because obviously we want to come in the top four, because it's not essential, but of course we'd love to have that second leg in front of our fans, and we feel so strong at the Valley and with their backing, and I say that the away fans we've had recently has been incredible as well. So, but yeah, it's important to get back in and get another win.
Seeing the celebrations here, does that serve as almost motivation that you want to make sure you join them next season?
Yeah, of course. I mean, you try not to look, really, trying to just keep your head down and not look what they're doing. But of course, that's what we want, and yeah, that's what we're desperate for.
There you go. Just a quick chat with Conor after yesterday's game. One thing that it's going to sound weird to say pleased me yesterday, but he was gutted, Tom. He was genuinely really, he looked upset about the fact that, and he was being genuine when he said, I don't want to look at those celebrations, it's hurting too much. And I've interviewed a lot of players over the last few years where we've had some pretty crap teams, and I've never got the impression that some of them just didn't care. Whereas Conor, you could see, he knows we were close to achieving something, and we still can achieve it, and he really, really wants it, and that's the sort of characters we need in this squad. So I don't want to say I'm happy to see he was sad, but I was actually content that he was upset, and he's gonna use that as motivation, and the whole squad will. I'm convinced of it, because we've got some real characters in that dressing room this season.
And at this stage in the season, character goes a long way. We talked about it a lot when we've been on a good run about how momentum can carry a team forward, and I think in defeat that character can do it as well. We've said it the same when Doc comes out after. I think the way that he captains this side, I know he's maybe not everybody's cup of tea, and I know he's not a massive talisman on the pitch, but I think the way that he captains this side and brings players along as well is huge. And when you've got characters like that in the midfield, and Berry when he's fit as well with his experience, I do think that carries you a long way. And going into the playoffs, you're going to need people like that. You look at Darren Prattley and the enforcer that he was in those playoffs against Doncaster. Obviously, that goal in particular stands out. But the way players like him just drove that team on, it is massive. It is massive. And like you, obviously, I don't want to see him hurting, but the fact that he does, and particularly when you see a game like yesterday and TC really struggles, and as I say, like people said, he was double marked and stuff, but people say he just looks disinterested, or Same with Kane Ramsey. Has his head been turned, or all of that sort of stuff? You start to worry. But as you say, when you hear an interview like that, you're like, okay, yeah, these players know. And of course, it might be personal achievement as opposed to, they love Charlton. It might just be that they want to succeed, of course, but that's fine because that brings Charlton along with them as well. So yeah, it was hard to listen to, and especially when you could hear all the cheering in the background there as well. And again, that's why I left the game when I did as well, because I just didn't want to see that. But yeah, he's got and as we've said a couple of times in this pod, they've got to find a way to use that as a fuel, not get too down about it now and not wallow in it, but remember that feeling and sort of tell themselves, we don't want to feel like that on the end of May, whenever that final is. We don't want this feeling again. Yeah, and so that's how they have to look at these remaining few games now.
Yeah, Paul says hoping that hurt Spurs this one. You mentioned because I've seen it a couple of times in the chat on the forums and stuff. So people said, people highlighting TC thinking he didn't look interested. But I don't. I'm not buying that one bit whatsoever. Like TC, I mean, how many interviews do I have to play with him before you understand he's not the most expressive person? He's shy. He's not someone who's going to throw his arms about when it's not going his way. That's just not. I think people read way too much into body language on the pitch sometimes. There's different types of characters all over the squad, but look at TC when he scores a goal and celebrates. There's someone who cares, like I don't. He was having a bad day and it weren't going his way. But yeah, I think people read too much into body language. So Dan says all we can do is the same as always. Look after ourselves. Get the players fit for the playoffs. Don't take unnecessary risks against Burton. We'll go into this again on Thursday, I imagine. But so what is the deal? What is the deal now then, Ben? Like, so do we play Lloyd Jones on Saturday if he's not fit? I mean, so I want to get fourth, but as Conor said, it's not an absolute necessity. And we keep banging on about how important it is to have the second leg at home, but we always forget that we actually lost against Doncaster last time around and went through on penalties. But there has to be a balance between not taking too many risks, but not letting people lose their match sharpness over 2 weeks. You don't play for 2 weeks. Sometimes you come back a little bit slow to start again. So how does Nathan have to approach this? He looks at that entire squad. Anyone who is a big risk, you don't take the risk. But anyone who you might be able to get an hour out of, you've got to find that balance.
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? Because I think the players we've got out, it's not as if like they've had a long injury and they're just working their way back to fitness. It's probably knocks that they've been nursing throughout the season, which obviously we know Lloyd has. And you just think, cool, if that knock becomes even worse, I mean, we'd be lost without Lloyd going into the playoffs. I mean, he's such a key player for us. When I say lost, of course, we could give a good account of ourselves, but I'm sure we'd then be reflecting going, cool, if we had Lloyd, that game would have been a lot different. And we look to him as a leader, as a team. I'm sure we do. And I know he kind of is a general in that back three, if you like, back five, of being able to call the line and look how good he was against Wickham and keeping Conor quiet on Monday. It was just brilliant. So, yeah, I'd personally not bother with Lloyd now until that first playoff game. We need him as sharp as anything. Depends what the rest of them are. I mean, if Berry can give us 50, 60 minutes. Burton, I think, are safe going by goal difference. Looks like they're probably safe now. So they'll be in for a little party themselves, staying up out of the brink of nowhere. It's going to be a strange game, isn't it? We kind of like a nice atmosphere. And that's where, as Tom said, we kind of got to spin it around now, haven't we? Like, we are disappointed. We've got a right to be disappointed as fans because it was a big game and we were really up for it. But now we got to spin it around and go, right, these players have given us such a great second half of the season. Let's not get too frustrated and get behind them now into this last game and going forward into the next two games after that. So, yeah, again, goes back to strength and depth in the squad, doesn't it? We don't have like-for-like players we can kind of take out and then we play our same game. So it's a tricky one to balance. But I'd say people like Lloyd, if they're getting injections or we're wrapping them up to get out there for the Burton game, don't bother. Give them a 2-week break. And then we're firing for that Saturday playoff game in a couple of weeks' time. That's the best we got to hope for now. And forget the home and away leg, second home, second leg. As Tom said earlier, I really don't think that's going to going into Stockport or a Wickham away from home doesn't really frighten me as much. Their patterns of play do, like Stockport, but as a ferocious atmosphere, I don't think that will play a massive difference.
Well, we'll discuss more during the week about who we'd prefer. I guess what we do know is we're effectively definitely going to finish either fourth or fifth. There's no real way we can finish third, bizarre, other than a draw in their game and a bizarre goal difference swing. So that means we know we'll be playing on the Saturday night. We know we'll be playing on the Thursday night. So we know when we'll be playing. We don't know where we'll be playing yet on those games. So yeah, we'll find out during the week or on Saturday. It'll be exciting. Let's hope we can go into those playoffs with a bit of momentum. Even if we don't win, we've got momentum overall behind us because we had an incredible second half of the season. Let's see where we land. Right, we've run out of time on this morning's Charlton Live. Many thanks to all of you who've joined us live in the chat. Those are really good comments. Yeah, difficult day yesterday, but we will bounce back and we'll see how we get on in the playoffs. Tom and Ben, been an absolute pleasure as always.
Cheers,
guys.
Lovely stuff. Right, don't forget merch store, charltonlive.etsy.com. Don't forget to hit subscribe on our YouTube channel and everywhere else that you see the show as well. So we'll be back on Thursday to look ahead to that game with Burton. But for now, I'm Louis Mendes. This has been Charlton Live, sponsored by PSF Steel. We shall see you again on Thursday.